can't wait to grade yours.
It's grade mine? Okay, I got
I'm looking into getting colored shirts. These ones have feminine. It's not feminine, it's nice. You can compare with me. I am, because it's only Thursday, so I can go to church, right? Yeah. So I'm soccer game, so I need to know whether it's missing the soccer game, whether I'm garbage anymore. But no, I'm just exercise. I don't know. It's her day. I finished my project. On time. I'm really proud of myself.
I do it every single day, every time.
For you, maternity.
I'm not sitting up here by myself. I'm not sitting up here by myself.
Hey, you can just go ahead and do it. I called this spot. Okay, thank you.
Oh, true. One more. 1 minute. There were a lot though.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. We just talked through it. My mom's going.
I thought that was one of the advantages of block schedule. There was somebody else going.
Well,
Yeah.
I never know what government was. Somebody's like, are they late? The bell rang? Late? It actually works well, I'm not gonna lie. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. We did, you know, when we school went to block. The first that's the hour lunch was great.
I went to lunch from the beginning.
That was when we had to started having like.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, here we go. Arts education. Please give her a big hand.
Hey everyone, I'm LHynes, and my project is on the importance of performing arts education, specifically in tandem with the cognitive developments that happen during middle childhood, which is the time period between 5 and 7, so around kindergarten, and how the performing arts can be integrated into elementary schooling during that age as to effectively increase literacy rates and respects to academic success, social emotional success, and cultural success. I have been performing since I was 4 years old when I took my first ballet class, and as most of you know, I'm kind of a swingy, dancey person. I knew I wanted to incorporate the performing arts into my project somehow. I've always known that, but I didn't really know with what respect I wanted to do that. However, last summer, I served as camp director at Fort County Players Kids Theater Camp, and that was just the funnest experience ever because I just got to bro with little kids. And we sat down and I just got to talking to them at lunch. And kids have the weirdest brains ever, and it was so interesting to me. And it kind of got me started into this whole childhood developmental psychology thing I've been doing for the past 6 months. And so I wanted to focus my research on my passion for working with kids, education, and developmental psychology, as well as the performing arts. So I didn't actually form my research question until after I'd done a lot of my research, but I ended up with basically what are the academic, social, emotional, and cultural effects of a performing arts integrated curriculum in elementary schools, and what are the best ways to implement them into public schools? A lot of my research, I'm not going to stand here and bore you with all the psychology that I went into in my paper, and unfortunately, due to time constraints, I can't really go into a lot of what I did, but I do want to highlight two of the developments that I found interesting that paired well with performing arts. The first being early literacy instruction and kind of debunking the traditional methods. Right now, when you go to kindergarten, you learn how to read, and you learn letters, and words, and sentences, and big stories. But programs like PASELA, which stands for Promoting and Supporting Early Literacy Through the Arts, kind of challenge that idea of traditional sitting down. Boys are not, little boys that are 6 years old, are not built to be sitting down and listening to verbal instruction for any period of time. So, and oftentimes when teachers force them to do so, they'll form long-lasting impressions of themselves as stupid or unable to learn, and they learn to reject reading in school, and they just kind of form this stigma around reading, which is why girls tend to do a little bit better with reading first. And that's actually one of the things that I found most interesting, was the differences in development between boys and girls during middle childhood, which I made a nice diagram of. Before girls turn 6 and enter middle childhood, they've already began to develop most of the language and fine motor skills, and boys don't even begin to develop these skills until after they turn 6, which is why boys are develop their gross motor skills, which is to test their rowdiness and overall boyishness before they turn 6. And then, so oftentimes girls are more ready to start reading earlier than boys, just because their brains are doing such different things during this time. Which makes me really feel for kindergarten teachers, because there's some crazy things going on in that head. The second thing I wanted to highlight was ADHD students and how improvisational theater techniques can be implemented into the classroom to address issues with ADHD. 3 major executive functions that are developed around middle childhood are working memory, which is your ability to assemble and disassemble and reassemble your short-term memory. Cognitive flexibility, which is your ability to change perspectives. And inhibitory control, which is the one that ADHD students tend to have the most trouble with, which is stopping spontaneity. And an interesting thing is when improvisational theater techniques are put into the classroom and they're allowed to get up and move around and kind of release some of their energy while simultaneously addressing these problems all at one time. Because improv requires working memory, cognitive flexibility, because they have to remember their character, and they have to think of things from other people's perspectives, as well as working memory, because they have to constantly evolve to the scene that is evolving around them, and inhibitory control, which is they have to constantly be conscious of not acting out of character or inappropriately in the scene. And yeah, I thought that was interesting that it paired so nicely together. And my internship was completed under the mentorship of 3 professors, 2 at UVA in the drama department and 1 in the psychology department at PVCC. My mentors were my primary mentor was Professor Rahili at the PVCC, and I sat in on his child developmental psychology lectures, and they were really, really interesting, and I ended up using them for a significant portion of my research paper. And then I went over to UVA to follow my mentors, David Dalton, who was a directing professor, and Denise Stewart, who taught a theater history class. And I thought it was interesting that even at the university level, the difference between a classroom that uses theater is so different than a classroom that's just like a strict traditional lecture class. Because the ones at UVA, like the directing classes, they were so interactive, all the kids were laughing, having a good time, they were putting on skits, they were learning about history, specifically in the theater history class. They were learning about the theater history, but they were doing it in like such a hands-on way where they were all engaged. And then, you know, in a lecture hall, it was a night class actually, so it was like 7:30 to 9:30 at night, and everyone was kind of like, but anyway, I couldn't really take any pictures because I didn't want to whip out and be inappropriate in the classroom and like take pictures of anything. That'd been awkward. But I did take a picture in front of the director, even though I kind of like a potato. I took a lot of notes that I ended up using in my research. My community service was with T. Blaine, and under the flawless leadership of Sharon Mormon, who is amazing. She's a GT coordinator at OES, and I contacted her because I had heard through the grapevine that they were attempting to do the impossible and putting on a fifth grade musical. And I knew I wanted to be involved in some way because this was probably like my dream when I was little. I just wanted to do a school musical. But we never did, and I was so excited about this. I was so excited to start. Towards the beginning, me and Tyler went twice a week for about an hour and a half. And we started off with theater lessons, learning walking and staging and what to do on stage and how to behave in front of an audience and how to speak loudly and project. And that's me departing wisdom. And so that took up probably the first 3 weeks. And while we were doing Lion King themed activities, but we were mostly just learning about theater in general. And then we went into the audition process, which is where they had to memorize short scenes and songs even, and audition and lay it out on their own line while we had to deliberate over who got what role. And it was it was an awesome experience, really. They were all so into it. And like, I hate auditioning, and I've been doing this for so long, and they were all first timers and so excited about it. It was really refreshing. So after we got the cast, we went into full-on work mode, and it was a lot of work. We were involved with sets and costume design and makeup and directing and choreographing and even the music side that Tyler movie took over. I mainly oversaw the choreography. I had to learn the choreography and teach it to like 11, 10-year-old girls, and they were all really, really sweet and really, really chatty, and they were also into it. It was very exciting. It was a really great experience, but it was definitely a learning experience for the whole grade. And this is some awesome pictures from the final performance, which was a total success. In fact, it was such a success that our Wallace leader, Ms. Sharon Norman, promised us for our legacy that this would be an annual thing, and that the current fourth graders are going to do a show next year and continue on this tradition, which is super cool. And also, you guys just heard, but on May 5th, we're all going to Richmond to see the professional performance of The Lion King, which I'm really excited about. And I don't have baby calculus, so I can go see it. But yeah, overall, this was a really, really big learning experience for me. I had never really been in an authority role before. I'd always been involved in the performing arts, and I had done camp before, but I had never had to do anything of that caliber. It was very, very exciting. Something I learned about myself during this experience is that I'm very good at talking to kids and very, very bad at talking to adults. Communicating with adults that you want to respect you is hard in general, and emails are hard in general. And calling people is even harder. And it was very difficult. I learned that I was kind of bad at it. It's definitely something I want to work at. And this is definitely something that stretched my experience. But it was definitely super significant for my senior year. It was probably one of my favorite things I've done. Definitely the most proud I've ever been of anything. I wrote a college essay about it. It was great. It was a great thing. Also, advice for future governorate school students. Rule number 1, keep Miss Carlton happy. She's really nice. It's hard not to get along with her, but just like keep her happy. Like if you're like crying and you just want to die, just go see her, and she makes everything better. It's kind of like Miss Harris. Like you just go, your life gets better. And that will happen. Things will go wrong. Obviously, it's inevitable, and you just gotta roll with the punches, man. And second rule, I would say, as kind of the common thing, do something that you're passionate about. This project was really more work than play for me. I mean, more play than work. Wow, that was a really good sentence. It felt like more play than work, and I really, really enjoyed myself. And even writing the research paper really didn't take that long of a time. It probably took me like 1 day, maybe. And like, because I just was, once you start typing, you just go with it, you roll with it, you're interested in what you're doing. It's not daunting at all. Like, this project seems so scary, and it's not in the slightest. It's just a lot of fun. If you do what you're passionate. Any questions?
So my question would be, how do you want to do this with the kindergarten kids? What do you say to the state people who they want these kids to be able to take a test? They want these kids to be able to take an SOL. They're going to waste their time teaching them how to do this. Like, how do you approach a topic like that? That's such a big deal with SOLs, but you want them to be able to do this, nice performing thing. How do you approach that?
Well, a lot of what the program Pasela was talking about, their main goal is not to have theater as something separate, like it was in this case with the GT class, but they really want to integrate it into into the core curriculum. It's not supposed to be like you take math class and you go to theater class. It's kind of interwoven in everything. And that's basically what I was saying with the kindergarten classes, is especially with reading and getting kids excited to read, you really need to have that interactive environment. And honestly, I think that would probably have to call for like less tests in general. And I mean, I feel like that's what everyone says, which is the reality of the situation, is you gotta test kids in order to get standardized, whatever. But, less testing, more getting the classroom environment to feel encouraging and supportive and interactive. Main goal. Yeah.
How has this experience affected you personally? And I know you said this is like the most proud you've ever been, all of these pieces. Has it given you any guidance to where you think you will go with this in the future?
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to UCU next year to study acting and performing for my bachelor's, and I really did think about going into elementary education. I'm really just gonna wait it out. I mean,
that's what I was
I
gonna
love
say.
it so much,
Yeah.
but it's definitely something that I have in mind. But who knows? Maybe.
Elementary school teachers need people like you.
Great.
So when we were practicing during lunch, there was a point you hit me with that I didn't get enough time. You were talking about how your standard English class goes from letters to words to sentences to stories. And you were talking more about how Pasela focuses on starting with stories and then going backwards to get them interested. Do you kind of expand on that a little bit more for everyone else?
I actually completely forgot to do that. But yeah, basically what Pasela is like, in a traditional classroom, you sit down, you listen to verbal instruction, and everyone remembers like learning about eggs and apples and stuff like that, and doing all flashcards every day. And that's traditional is letters, words, sentences. Then you learn to read stories and stuff like that. But basically, Pasela suggests that we should reverse that and get kids really interested in storytelling and character development, plot development, and like the whole more theatrical aspects of it, I guess. And then using that enthusiasm that's created at the bigger level, going backwards from there and going to stories, to sentences, to words, to learning the letters, to just get kids more excited from the get-go rather than just like, oh, reading is dumb, I can't do this, it's too hard, it's boring. Thank you, actually.